If you are someone who's trying to leverage their education, whether it's a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, or a trade, or even just skills you've learned from on-the-job training, or if you're someone who's trying to figure out how you can conquer your fears to get you to your next level in life, I have the perfect episode for you. If I was you, I would stay tuned into After the Music.
You're about to listen to a great episode of the Laz and B Experience podcast. Within this episode, my hope is that you obtain something that will help you find your success. So grab a pen, get your paper, your favorite snack or drink, and really listen to what I have to say. I truly believe it can be what you need to get you to your next level in life. So grab a seat and enjoy the ride, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to another episode of the Laz and B Experience podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today is going to be another great episode with a guest today. I feel like I say this every time, and I'm going to say it every time. This is a very special guest, and all my guests are special because I specifically picked them out because of what I feel they can add to my podcast and hopefully give to you guys. So my guest today is, I will call her a mentor. She definitely an advisor, someone that I can go to whenever I need help with my career, with school, with anything. So I'm very gracious that she allowed me to come and do this podcast with her. She's an educator, she's an engineer, she's a doctor, she's a mother.
Yes.
She's everything. So without further ado, I do want to introduce my guest, Dr. Whitney Gaskins. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing great. This is exciting. Happy to be here.
Yes, I'm happy that you're here too. But we will get started. Today's episode, if you couldn't tell by the title, which I feel like I say every time, is about leveraging your education and also conquering your fears, which I think are two great topics, especially for my listeners. So let's get started with the first question, which is, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then why are you the person we should talk to or listen to when it comes to leveraging your education as well as conquering your fears?
What a wonderful question. So about myself. So I think I always start with the informal or the formal things, because that's what people tend to grasp first. Is I am an engineer. So I have a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering. I have a master's degree in quantitative analysis, and I have a PhD in biomedical engineering. All of my research now is centered around engineering education, really focused on how I can remove obstacles for STEM excellence. That's why my lab is called the Rose Lab. And so that's like all of those formal things and educational training that I've gone through. But the informal things are just as important as the formal things, right? Mm-hmm. Like I am someone's wife, I am a mother, I am expecting, so I have 1.5 children, and I've lived a lot of life. And I think that those life experiences are what make my education so valuable, because I've been able to do things leveraging life experience with my education that are really non-traditional, mm-hmm. right? So a lot of those things, like I worked in the automotive industry for 5 years before I decided to work at the University of Cincinnati as an academician.
And is that after you got your doctorate or before?
It was during actually.
Okay.
Like I was finishing my doctorate, and I was like, okay, grad students are paid nothing, and I can't live like this anymore. So I was like, I need to get a job. So I got a job while I was finishing my dissertation, and I loved it. But people were like, how did you do that? How are you able to swing that? It's literally, this is real fear conquering. I know that I'm capable to do most things. And a lot of people are like, how are you so self-assured? Because I've lived life, right? Like I've survived some crazy things, horrible experiences, but I was still also able to get a degree, mm-hmm. and study it through it. And I know I was not an A+ student. I was working full time, going to school. And I just knew that when they had a job opening, I'm applying and I can talk about the skills that I have and what I can bring to the table. And they said, you're absolutely right. You do have those skills. You can do that. And I worked there for 5 years. Like,
it was an engineering job too?
Engineering, quality engineering.
Okay.
Loved it, right? But people are like, how in the world? You like you need to be in manufacturing or industrial or mechanical. Here I am, big biomedical engineer working in the automotive industry. I just think that I just knew what I was capable. So self-assuredness is like the secret to success.
This is probably a selfish question, but why did you choose biomedical engineering?
Oh my gosh, it's like where my heart is happy.
Okay.
Right? Even now, and I still do research in engineering education, I keep up with so many different elements. It makes my heart happy because I think that we have the ability to help people in really profound ways by understanding the body deeper than what you do in biology. Those things are also critical. But can you ever think about the fact that someone's heart is not beating appropriately? Biologists know why. Engineers fix it. Like, I just think there's nothing like that, right? I think about, I'm a Black woman in America, and we are at the top of a chart for almost every disease imaginable. Heart disease, #1 killer of Black women in America. We get diabetes, like all of these things, we're at the top of the chart. They're all related though. So could you develop a device to figure out when we're actually suffering, so that way we can get treatment faster? Because one of the reasons why it's the #1 killer is that our identifying markers are not the same as white men. But all the research is done on white men. It's a great field that we can really have profound impact. It's beautiful to think about somebody is out there working to make our lives hopefully longer and healthier and better. Yeah.
Definitely. I actually started off as a biomedical engineer major, but I ended up switching to electrical.
Still a good field, but I mean, biomedical.
I feel like I still can go into the field of biomedical or
absolutely
do that, but I don't know. I just feel like I have more opportunities with electrical.
Skills are transferable, right? So biomedical is an industry, which is a huge argument about specialization, especially in undergrad in the first place. Like, why are you going into BME when you could do mechanical, electrical, computer even, and still do the biomedical engineering work? It's just, I know that those are the problems that I want to center my work around, my life around. And so without that specialization, you don't get the classes like the biologies, the anatomy and physiology. Your examples in biomechanics are about beams in buildings, but if you're in BME, it's about blood vessels, your capillary. So it makes it more relevant to what you're studying, which is why I'm pro having specialties, but understand why, if the world was like, we should chill out, I would be like, yeah, probably, because it's way too specialized and people are not seeing that the skills are transferable.
I guess this is another question, kind of selfish too. Why did you choose to go into education after you got your PhD in
Deep
biomedical?
Question, right? So I'm telling you, my heart is in love with biomedical research, and you're like, but you went into engineering ed. What are you talking about? I said earlier, I've lived a lot of life, but part of living that life, I was always isolated and lonely. Do you know how many Black people I graduated with in biomedical engineering?
Probably none.
One.
No.
And she transferred in. I don't think people realize the disparities in STEM. You hear it like it's this buzz, we need to get more people into STEM. And we do. But it's deeper when you're actually in the field, because I was alone and I was iced out too. It's not just you're alone because demographically you're around the room and you're the only one. You're alone. People don't talk to you alone. You're isolated alone. I think if it wasn't for Nesby and my sorority sisters, I don't know if I would have had a community in engineering. It is horrible. And knowing that, I was like, no one else needs to go through this. I'm a problem solver. I'm an engineer. I'm fixing this problem, right? So then I've now dedicated my life to what can I do to get more people in this field, because I don't want anyone to feel the way I felt, go through the things that I went through. We need to stop having trauma stories in engineering and having thriving stories. Yeah.
So getting to the topic at hand, finally.
Yeah.
When you say leveraging your education, what do you mean by that? And does it have to be a formal education?
Oh, no. I actually have learned more informally than I did in my formal education. And I use those skills that I learned in informal settings more than I probably use in my technical skills. Not that they're not important, they are. And I use both. But that informal education is critical. You ask, how do you leverage it? People need to understand that you have to make connections about what you're capable of with the things that you know about the world and life. And I'm really, really good at that. So I am a leader of an office. I have a team of 9 people that work with me, and that's just on the administration program side. There's 4 more people that work with me on my research. And what's so special about that is I used to be a manager at Sam's Club all the way through undergrad and part of grad school, right? That's what I did. I worked full time. That was the most valuable learning lesson I've ever had in my life. You have people from all walks of life, all different goals, all different generations, and I had to get everybody to work together. And yeah, it's retail. And if you've never worked retail, you don't understand. I think everyone needs to have to work a retail job and deal with the public.
Or hospitality too.
Or hospitality.
Yes.
Like, if you have not had to work with people in customer service, you don't understand how difficult it is to not only get your team to not snap and provide amazing service to really rude people, but then also to deal with it yourself. Like, I have been called more things from people because of a slight inconvenience or things that aren't even your fault. It's been ridiculous, but it literally taught me how to problem solve, think quick on my feet, how to keep my cool, how to stay professional. I've learned how to talk to different generations, understand where they're coming from. There is nothing, you cannot teach that in school. That's what I mean by leveraging it. And I use the skills from Sam's Club more in my job than I do what I went to college for.
So what are some other, I guess, ways or informal ways of education that's out there that people can leverage?
I would tell people to volunteer. That's very informal. Get involved in your community. Community organizing is informal education, working with people, understanding how to come together for a common goal. And always, not everyone needs a 4-year degree. And I am pro education. I will tell you to go to school 100% of the time, but school could be a trade. And a lot of people don't realize, like, we need people who are in construction. I love my house, but I can't build this. I don't know how to do this. I need someone else who knows how to do that, right? We need plumbers. I have a son who was into flushing stuff down the toilet. You think I knew how to fix that? Like, I need people who have these skills. There's other things too, like entrepreneurship, that really teach you about what it is to grow and thrive, to make something viable and livable, that even if you decide, man, it isn't for me, you have a different appreciation for when you do decide, oh, you know what, entrepreneurship isn't for me, I'm going to go into 9 to 5. It gives you a whole different perspective of like what the company is going through. Because when you don't have those types of perspectives, you think that you're owed the world. Then when you have to do it, then you're like, oh, let me chill out. Like, I have a different worldview. That's what I mean about leveraging and learning. Learn from everything. So
you kind of talked about this already, but what are some techniques for someone can use so they can leverage that education?
Yeah, I honestly think that people have to have a spirit of reflection. So I'm not a big journaler. I want to be. Like, I wish I could just sit and write out all of my thoughts all the time, but I reflect all the time. I'm very introspective in general. People need to have that in whatever way they capture it, because that's how you know, like, what did I go through? What did I learn from what I went through? But the biggest thing is, what did I contribute that was good? And what did I contribute that was horrible? Because then that's how you're like, oh, okay, that's the skill I need to fix, because I was really bad at that. Like, didn't handle this well at all. And you start sharpening that skill. So then when you're going on interviews and you might feel like, man, I'm not qualified. Nah, remember that situation? I went through this and this is what I learned from it and this is how I fixed it. That's how you get there.
So what are some ways that someone can tell that they're moving in the right direction or in the wrong direction when they're trying to figure out their education or leveraging their education?
Growth is essential, right? So if you are stagnant for far too long, that means that you're holding yourself back. So many people want to live in this woe is me, like, all these bad things are happening to me. bad things are going to happen. They happen to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds so cliche. It's like how you bounce back or how you get back up. That is not actually a cliche. Like, that is real life, because so many people get defeated and they let whatever bad thing happen be their story. I refuse for that to be my story. And that's how you know, like, if you're going to keep going and you see growth, you're no longer in that defeated mentality. You'll realize it, because you'll be like, oh, I remembered I used to think like all these things just kept happening and kept happening. You'll see like, oh, they're not happening like I thought they were before. So my husband always talks about like being a perpetual optimist and the power of optimism. And I am not that is not me. I'm a realist, borderline pessimist. So like I have to like leverage like the power of positive thinking is real. That's how you know you have growth, when you stop being a victim to your own life and your own story, your own skills.
So what could be some negative outcomes if someone doesn't leverage their education, I guess, correctly?
Yeah, so I've actually witnessed this, right? Because this still goes back to the being a victim of your own circumstances and your own life story. It sounds good in theory. It's harder than how I'm speaking about it, right? So the power of positive thinking is not something you can just turn on and one day be positive and or not, right? Like, that's not it. But you have to actively work towards it every day. But if you don't work towards it, you will be in the same place. You're not going to achieve your goals. You're going to feel down. That's actually how I know people sink deeper in depression in their mental health journeys. Honestly, people need to seek help. When you're not feeling like fulfilled, then I know that you're not leveraging your skills. So this is a faith walk that I know not everybody's on, but we all were blessed to have a skill that we're supposed to contribute to the world. I firmly believe that everybody has something that they are going to contribute in a positive way. When you're doing that, you feel good, right? Like, you're like,
yeah,
oh,
definitely.
I am like, yeah, you're in your groove. Like, oh, this is my purpose. I have this. When you're not, that's how you start sinking further and further. You haven't unlocked your gift.
So what are some ways that someone can like kind of make that switch when they're like going deep in that hole and they're trying to like figure things out?
Yeah. So I talked a little bit about reflection and the power of reflection as well, and making sure you understand and having that introspective mind. The other thing is the sphere of influence is real. So we are not supposed to be navigating the world alone. And a lot of people try to act like, I don't need nobody. I got, like, okay, that's cool. But there's a reason why there's a whole scripture about iron sharpens iron. And if you really don't believe, that's fine. But then there's biology too, right? So backing it up, we are herd animals. You actually are supposed to have a tribe, a herd, a group, whatever you want to call it. You need to find it. And if your sphere can't pull you out, get professional help. You've got to find your stride. I really firmly believe everyone is on this earth for a reason, and there are resources to help you get there. Now, say you're not I'm not getting therapy. I'm not doing the professional help thing. Like, that's not for me. You have to do something, whether it's read a book about what you can do, if it is journaling, if it is goal setting, if it's vision boarding. You have to do something to reset your mindset, to know that you are worthy, you're capable, and we want you to be successful. So a lot of the times we get bogged down, at least I do, about how sexist and racist the world can be. But if that's all I focused on, I would never make it out, because that's not 100% of the story. My people might only be 12% or 13% of the population, but that's who I'm going to surround myself with, so that way I can make a difference in my community.
And I definitely agree with that, because like definitely with social media, depending on like who you following and who like you surround yourself with, you can definitely see what part of the world you're seeing, whether it's positive or negative. And so being able to like, just another thing, if you're on social media a lot, make sure you're knowing who you're following, what kind of output they're putting out there, because that also can add to you not being feeling like good or positive.
Comparison is the tool of the devil too. You will find somebody who's just like you, same age, all of that, and they have something you want and you think that you should have it too, let that go. Like, you are going to get what's yours at your time. Let it go. And social media does a horrible job of framing everybody as successful and happy, and that is not true. I was just crying the other day, right? Like, I am not happy 24/7. Nobody is.
Yeah, I agree, because I consider myself an adult student right now, and I'm not even a full-time student either. And I feel like I should be so much further. Like, I interview a lot of people that I went to college with or high school with, and they're like totally different where I'm at. And I'm like, man, if I just did this differently, but where I'm at is where I'm supposed to be at.
Exactly.
As long as I keep moving forward and I keep making those strides forward, then I believe I will get to where I want to be.
The journey is yours, right? Not anybody else's. I promise you, I get visions about things that I'm supposed to be doing or what's next in my life that other people think is crazy as all get out. And it's not crazy because it's mine. It wasn't for you. Otherwise, it would have been your vision, but it was my vision, right? Like, your journey, your walk, your purpose, your life is yours alone. Please stop comparing it to friends, family, or even other people's expectations. That's not their life. Yeah, well, people want good for you, but they actually don't know what that is. And so as long as you're happy, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's great to surround yourself around people who support you no matter what you're going for.
Yeah.
Because I am very thankful for my family, my siblings, my mom, my dad, because even though I've been in school for a while and sometime I took some time off, I came back, took some time off, whatever, they were there and supported me the whole way. And that just made me feel better instead of having people around like, why are you still doing that? Or you should just stop doing that and try something new. But they're there for me. Of course, they ask questions like, making sure this is what I want to do, but they're there to support. So definitely surrounding yourself around people that want to see you grow. So when we talk about like leveraging your education, whether it's formal or informal, is there a time frame or is there a point when you can start leveraging it, or like, do you have to waste some time? Should you?
This is a good question. How do you start leveraging it? That's interesting, because I was thinking about how I use my doctorate a lot to get into some spaces that were previously closed to me. And I don't know if we talk about that enough. Being Dr. Whitney Gaskins, just the doctor part, has opened doors for me, because people are like, oh, I guess we need to put some respect on your name, right? And it works because I need to be in these spaces so I can actually impact and affect change. And so it's not like I'm wearing it as a badge or something, right? Like, let me in, I'm Dr. Whitney Gaskins. But I'm fully aware that some people would never have given me the time of day if I didn't have it. So I know in one element I do that. Other places too is like, I'm not scared to showcase who I am and my abilities, and a lot of people are. But we don't go through life to be shy or timid. And I would think that I have some humbleness. But I know if I'm going after something, or I know what my next goal is, I'm not going to be shy about why I can achieve it. People need to remember that. Like, we don't know what you know if you're going to keep it to yourself. So sometimes you're going to have to talk the talk and walk the walk. But you got to talk the talk. Don't be shy because you think that, oh, I'm going to be considered not humble or arrogant because I'm telling about how good I am at something. How else are we going to know? Like, I need to know. So you got to talk the talk. Yeah. Tell me.
So who are some people, I know you talked about this earlier about like reading books, but do you know some people, or do you know some resources people can use that can further help them with this leveraging of education?
Ooh, this is a tough question, because I read a lot. And so I feel like I should start publishing my I don't read. I do read, but like I listen to audiobooks too. So I'm like, if I'm in the car, I'm not jamming to music. I'm usually listening to a book. So I'm pulling up my Audible now because I'm like, man, what is something that I would recommend? Everyone keeps recommending this book, Emotional Intelligence, because it helps you learn about who you are. I highly recommend it. But I'm going to tell you the truth about leveraging. You should read the book Mastery by Robert Greene. So as I'm trying to scroll through, I want to talk about this book because people think that masters. So the book is is rooted in all these examples of people who we consider masters in the world, right? Leonardo da Vinci and others, right? And you're like, we don't ever think about their life journey. We know what the outcome was because they're past. So we always hype up the outcomes of the amazing things that they've done without actually hyping the journey and the story of their life. So they do an amazing job talking about it. And nobody in that book, I think, had a traditional life. Like, they've been rejected from places because they wanted to sit outside and paint all day, right? And they were taking in the world and they decided to do things differently. One woman featured in the book, see, I need to read it again. I can't remember her name. So you can just read the book. But she had a disability, and I'm pretty sure I can't remember what it was. She's autistic as well, but then she turned out like making some type of a robot that helped farmers. Like, you're like, what? Like, things that people don't ever glorify. That book shows you how the journey is critical in the development of the outcomes. So we always do that. Why am I going through this, Lord? Like, why is this my story? This is so tough. But those whys or those journeys or those tough points turn into pivot points for greatness. Like, that book, that is a book about leveraging life experiences and education like no other. There's a sad story in there too. Do you know, like, you go to the hospital, they wash their hands, you get in surgery, it's a clean room, blah, blah, blah. So this man figured it out a long time ago, right? Like, you guys, we have to sterilize things. But he didn't know how to communicate his message. So everyone was like, this dude is crazy. Get out of here. They shunned him. His practice had to shut down. He like lost everything he loved because he kept trying to tell everybody people are dying when we do surgery because it's not sterile. And everyone was just like, dude, he just was horrible at delivering the message. Comes out he was right all along. The message in that is you do need to learn how to communicate with other people, or you're not gonna like.
That's true.
You could be the smartest one in the room talking your talk, but if you don't know how to communicate with people, it doesn't go anywhere. The book is good. Blows my mind. If you want to talk about leveraging education, that's the book.
When you were talking about the book, it actually made me remember a book that over the summer, during my internship, my manager of the controls interns of the company, he had us do. We were basically in the book club together.
Yeah.
And we read the book Chop Wood, Carry Water, and it's a really good book about a young man who wants to become a samurai archer for some reason.
Okay.
And it's crazy because it seemed like the book is from an old time, but they also bring in like
real world,
like right now referencing. So
Yeah.
it's weird, but it's a great book to help with personal development and like how to stay along the path, because through the book, the journey is like 10 years for him to be the samurai archer, and he wanted to do it like right then and right there. But throughout the time, his sensei would like tell him all these different stories, and then one of the stories that he's talked about was about famous failures. And how like all these people are like experts or celebrities or like great within their field, but they failed along the way, and how they use their failure to like be successful. So I thought that was another book that might also be interesting. It's a great read. It's a very simple read. It's about maybe 3 or 4 pages per chapter.
Oh, okay.
So it's not too bad. It's like 33 chapters. So it's not too long. You probably read it in a couple of hours or something like that. So
Chop Wood, Carry Water.
Yes.
Okay. You know, I'm gonna download it. I'm gonna listen to this book. I love. You learn so much just from reading. So, yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
Definitely. Now, when it comes to leveraging your education, is there ever like a too late moment, or ever a time where it's too late to leverage something that you learned?
Oh no, I don't know if I believe in it. Life being too late. I think this is probably a bad question to ask me at this point in my life, because I think that as a culture, we are obsessed with people doing things at young ages. So-and-so went to college and they're only 12, and this person at 14, and blah, blah. Like, so-and-so's a millionaire, blah, blah. And you're like, shut up. Like, you do know that you can still get these things at 60 and it's still awesome. So it's never going to be too late to leverage something. Can you miss opportunities because you don't leverage things appropriately? You don't have your transferable skills down so that way you can complete it? Absolutely. You're gonna fumble the bag. You're gonna fail. That's okay. But please, let's get out of this ageist mindset that the only things that are amazing are when you do it at 10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, you can be 50 and get a bachelor's degree, and that is still freaking amazing. Like, we need to stop acting like you have to do all of these things before you're even truly an adult.
Definitely. So, moving on to, I guess, the second part of this episode, which is about conquering fears.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you believe fear comes from, and then what role does it play in someone's success?
Such a wonderful question. I can tell you personally, fear comes actually not from a fear of failure. I don't know why I'm not scared to fail, but I am scared of success. And people are like, what do you mean? Because I don't want to fumble the bag. So it's not like failing. You're like, I feel like that's an like, okay, you fail. Like, we all do that. But when you're successful and holding on to that success, that is stressful and scary. And so for me, I think it comes from a spirit of like, it's unknown. I know quite a few successful people, but something about it, I've never personally experienced the levels of success that I want in life. And so that unknown space is scary. And I think that's why people are fearful, right? So a lot of people will say they're scared of failure, but probably because they never realized how much they've already failed at things. Like, I'm well aware that I failed all the time, so it's no longer scary to me to fail. But I think a lot of people are scared to fail because they've never thought about like, oh, I've messed up before. I can overcome failure easily. Try to hold on to success and then tell me how you feel.
That's a great point to say that. I never really thought of it like that. So do you think fear goes away like after you like conquered it, or like can it still have an impact on your life? Like,
it's there. I mean, it goes away. It's not as great, right? I think fear has degrees. I'm level 10 if we're going from 1 to 10 scared of spiders. I know that's a really silly comparison, but like, that's a real fear. It's not lessening. It's not going away. Public speaking, do it all the time. So my fear when I started speaking was probably at a 9. Now it's probably at a 3. So it's not perfect. So there's still moments I sweat, get a little anxious. What if I mess up? But then I'm like, oh, it's okay. Because if I mess up, it's all right, right? I'm a human. I'll recover. It's okay. So I think it lessens, doesn't always just go away.
So what are some techniques or ways for people to like get over that fear?
Getting over the whatever your fear is, one, you need to face it head on. Like, whatever it is that you're scared to do, just do it. That is, what is that? The definition of courage, bravery. Just do it. Do it scared. And practice. And I think the biggest thing is to extend grace. So a lot of the times people think that, oh my God, I didn't do this thing appropriately. And you kind of crumble or feel defeated. I think people need to understand it's more normal than not to not be good at something in the beginning. And the more you do it, the better you get. And so that unknown feeling of like, what is this going to be like goes away. There's nothing to be fearful anymore. I think that's why babies are so amazing, right? Like, they walk and talk and like for the first time, like everything they experience is for the first time in the world. Could you imagine if your baby was scared? They would never walk. Just do it. They might be scared too, but they just gonna do it. They're like, well, let me do it anyway. Like just do it. And if you really, so even thinking about babies, they see examples of what they're trying to do all the time. You walk around and talking and stuff, so they try to mimic your behaviors. So say you're like, I don't know how to do this. I'm scared to do it. Find somebody who is doing it. I guarantee you're not the first person on the planet to do whatever it is you're trying to do. Get a mentor. Find a role model and do what they're doing.
So you just said about kids or babies not being like very fearful of what they're doing. Like, so what do you think people start feeling this thing of fear? Or like, how does it come if we are like born, I guess, kind of fearless?
Hurt. That first time you fall down and hit your head, you're a little bit more cautious about, wait a minute, I don't want to feel that anymore. Same with your emotions. It's the same with your emotions. So you don't want to feel pain. No one really does. You're like, no one wants their heart broken. They don't want bones broken. Like, you don't want to feel pain. That's where it comes from. So you're scared of like having those negative feelings. They go away. They're actually probably not the easiest to repair, but we have better methodologies for that, right? Like we have support systems for your emotions. And I think when people think about that, what is that saying? It's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all.
I think so, yeah.
That's all about that. Stop being, the feelings are so good when they're good. Feel them, do the thing. Don't be fearful of it, because that's actually, that's where regret comes from.
Yes.
That is where regret comes from. Just do it.
So I asked this question already when it comes to like leverage your education, but maybe you have other books or other resources that can help other people or help people get over their
fear.
The fear of fear.
The fear of fear. How do you do? Like, I'm like, man. All right, guys, I got to go back to this Audible list because I have such a guilty pleasure. I read romance novels, so I'm like scrolling because I'm like, let me get to the stuff that's not a romance novel, because those things are interesting. And I read a lot about diversity work because I try to understand what is really going on with people. Why are they so hateful in the world?
And like as you looking through that, like I'm trying to think about like what do I think when I'm like fearing something, especially I feel like in education, especially I feel like because I've been in school so long, I have this fear of not making it for whatever reason, and like, but I keep going after it for some reason too. It's like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like I don't want to give up because I know I can make it, but I also don't know if I can really make it, but I'm gonna keep going until I make it. So
are you actually fearful?
That's a great question.
I feel like I don't sound like you're fearful. I think you're just worried about delayed, right? Like,
I mean, that's true too.
I don't know about if you're fearful because you're still doing it, or you're doing it scared, but it doesn't sound fearful to me. A lot of it is about managing other people's expectations. We live in such a shame culture, right? Like we love to make people feel bad because something sick about it is like, it makes us feel better to know that we're doing better than somebody else. It's really kind of disgusting when you think about it. A part of it is that, right? Like I don't want people judging me in a negative way. It doesn't sound like you're fearful of the act. It's fearful of judgment. That's because we're mean to each other. The world is mean. Like social media, Twitter bandits and keyboard thugs, like it's real out here. So I think a lot of it is more about, please stop judging me and let me live my life. Just like we were talking about, everyone's journey is different, and we do make mistakes as people, but we're not the sum of our mistakes. So let me live. I got to figure it out. That's a big part of it. Man, I just thought about that. Could you imagine if you had to be judged by the worst thing that you've ever done over and over and over again?
Yeah, I wouldn't do anything then after that.
As a society, what is the country? 80-something% Christian? Some ridiculously high number, right? And it's all about a redemption story. And we don't give anybody redemption.
Exactly. And I hear that a lot, especially on other podcasts or when other comedians. I know I follow Kevin Hart a lot. I feel like he's a great example of like being able to conquer, I guess, I don't know if he's his fears or whatever, but being successful in whatever he's doing.
Failing forward. That's what it is. Failing forward.
Well, hold on. Now I just forgot what I was trying to say.
Sorry.
That was my fault. Now, what were you just...
No, you said like Kevin Hart is like a good example.
No, but before I say Kevin Hart,
the redemption.
Yes. I feel like when he was first starting, everybody liked him. Like when his first comedy specials came out, when his first movie was coming out, people... Like, I still watch Soul Plane, like, to go to sleep and stuff.
Oh, my gosh. I'm judging you right now. That is hilarious.
But now I feel like everybody, like at least the people that like I grew up with, are like they're not Kevin Hart fans a lot, or at least some of them are.
Like they don't think he's funny,
they don't think he's funny, or they don't think his movies are good. But I personally think like every time he come out, I know he's having another movie that's coming out pretty soon. He's actually coming to Indy in October, I think, that I really want to go to. So I don't know, but I just feel like he's a great example of somebody who's like conquering their fears and like not caring what other people care about what he's working on.
Yeah, I actually think he's a great example too, because he's also failed very publicly, right?
Yes.
Like failed in his marriage and let his wife down, failed, I mean, his ex-wife and his current wife, right? Like had some flops when you think about comedy and like being successful, and guess what he continues to do? I'm not joking, that cliche with fall down, get back. Like it is get back up and do it again. The other thing about Kevin Hart, and something that I also think I practice, is a giving spirit. And I don't know if people realize that the more you give, literally the more blessed you are. Now let me tell you, there's nuances to that. So you can't just go out and think giving away all this stuff is like how you get it. It means like from a real spiritual place, like drop the jealousy, stop the competition, do the stuff because you really want to do it. And the stuff that makes your heart happy, you're supposed to be doing anyway. And I remember when we started this journey with the Gaskins Foundation and doing this K through 12 STEM outreach, we had zero funders. It was me. Like I would go to work and then I would go to the store and buy supplies, right? It was all me. And I would give to my community because I just really felt like we deserved it. And so that's a small version of giving, but we're in a completely different enterprise and space right now. Like, and we give and give and give, and it comes back tenfold because it makes our heart happy.
I agree. Yeah. I'm a big with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I've been doing it actually for 4 years now, since yesterday. And like every time,
that's a long time. That's a good commitment. I'm like, where's the clap to that?
But every time I do it, like I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying my time with my little, and like being able to be someone that hopefully when he gets older, he'll be like, this person helped me be to where I'm at right now.
Your little already thinks that of you, right? Like I really do. Like I'm like, come on. Absolutely they do. And I'm just proud of you for doing it.
Yes. Okay. Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what advice can you give someone who is like, just feel like they've been failing their whole life or living in fear their whole life? And what advice can you give them to help them live kind of outside their comfort zone to get to that success that they're looking for?
One, remember fear is normal. We're all scared. I'm scared of success. I'm so scared that if I make it, that I'm not going to be able to maintain it, right? Like, I would be horrible if I was Beyonce. Like, oh my God, if I put out, you know what I mean? Like, just, you have to stay at that number. Once you're at the number one spot, you got a target on your back. Everyone's coming for you. Like, that's scary. Everyone has fear. The biggest difference is, are you going to let it run you or are you just going to do it anyway? I refuse to let it run me. Like, I'm going to do it anyway. And it goes away. Sometimes you forget you even have it, right? Like, I'm not fearful of that anymore. So I would just tell you to do it scared.
I agree, because even with this podcast and with me making the decision to want to have guests and just going out to ask these different people, be like, would you be a guest on my podcast? Like for me, I was like, why would they want to be a guest on my podcast? Most of them probably never even knew I had a podcast or
who cares?
Whatever. Yeah. But it's like, you just got to put it out there. If they say no, they say no. If they say yes, they say yes. But like, you just got to keep moving with it.
I agree. Keep doing it. The thing about feeling like you have failed your whole life, that actually could be true. Maybe you would just keep making the wrong decisions over and over and over again. I need you to stop, take a minute. What did you learn from all of those instances? What would you do differently? And start doing that, right? So it's not rocket science. People are like, all these bad things keep happening. Well, stop making those bad choices. Not on like it's as easy, but you have to start thinking, right? You're going to be like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I want something different for me. So what are you doing right now that's the same? So that way you can start doing some things that are different.
Now, in your opinion, can you be successful without conquering your fears? Like, do you have...
Sure. To a certain level, there is going to be a point when you stagnate. So you can be successful without fully conquering your fears 100%. And it's also how you define success. But there is going to be a point when you are stagnant. There's going to be a point where you might want more, and the only way to get to more is pushing through. So then you're going to be faced with the choice: let the fear hold me back, or go after what I want.
So how does not conquering your fears impact those around you and the people that you love and support you?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I've lost friends over some of those things, right? Like, the sphere of influence is important. And so, no, you don't just drop people because they're on their own walks. But there does become a time when other people's jealousy and competition is their fears, right? It's rooted in fear. Jealousy is rooted in fear. Competition is rooted in fear. You don't want to be left behind, right? All of it. That you have to let people go. And so you have to surround yourself with people who actually truly do love and support you. And so you have to pay attention. Pay attention to the friend that doesn't clap for you or congratulate you. Because they will sometimes unintentionally, but a lot of times intentionally hurt you.
So do you think you can like make that friendship work, or do you think you just have to like let it go?
It's going to be one of those letting it go moments, which is the hardest thing. It'll break your heart. It's the same thing as having a romantic relationship. Breaking up with friends is just as tough, if not more so. I will say that you can always have love for somebody and always wish them well. It doesn't have to always be rooted in negativity or crazy drama, right? It doesn't have to be fit for TV. But I will say that it's going to still hurt your feelings. And you're just going to have to tell people I love you, but I have to love you from a distance.
So do you have to say that to them, or can you just like say that to yourself? And
I've done both. I've done both. So I don't know if I regret this decision, but there is a friend that I had that I thought we would be friends forever. That I never had a conversation with, but love from a distance and want nothing but the best for them, truly and honestly. But so much had happened that I couldn't bear another moment of heartbreak, because they never owned up to the things that they did to hurt me. They knew that they hurt me too. And they never owned up to it. And I just couldn't do it. Right. And I didn't even want to bring it back, because it wasn't worth it at that point anymore. There was more pain than there was joy. But I still love them and I want the best for them. Then I have another friend that I did have the conversation with, right? Like, I'm like, listen, this is crazy. Like, how could you possibly do this? Like, there was a lot of misunderstanding. They were taking things that I was doing in a way. So then I had to apologize. They had to apologize. And we kind of just were like, yeah, we'll just have to love each other from a distance. And we do. You'll see, like, social media lets you do the fake support. I don't want to call it fake, but like, okay, I like your post. Like, yeah, like, we're cool. We don't hate each other. I would never actually speak bad about them ever.
I agree. Yeah.
Ever. We were cool for when we were cool. Now we're just loving each other from a distance.
Well, I agree with that. I feel like I'm kind of going through that, but
it hurts bad. So people always act like, oh, I don't know the people that can be like, oh, I don't need nobody. Okay, that's you. Good. I don't even know if that's a congratulations. It's actually kind of sad. But those heartbreaks, man, are real, and they're not always from relationships. That heartbreak from friendships has like taken me out before. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I'm so sorry that you're going through it.
So as we kind of wind down on this episode, before we wind down, I just want to make sure that we got everything out that we need to get out for this episode. So is there anything that you feel like I missed, or any question that you feel like you want to answer that pertains to either leveraging your education or conquering your fears?
I don't have anything else to add. I think that one of my mentors always told me that you were born qualified. You get an education to be certified, right? So I just want to impart that on you. Like, you're qualified. You have what you need, and you're amassing so much experience just by living. Remember that and learn how to use those things as transferable skills for whatever it is you want to do.
Great. And then lastly, if there's one or two things that you want to make sure that all the listeners leave, if they don't leave with anything else, what would those things be?
Ooh, okay. One is like we've been talking about, do it scared, right? Always do it scared, no matter what it is. Surround yourself with people. I know there's loners in the world. I'm actually an introvert and a loner as well, but I still have friends. So that's not an excuse to navigate the world alone. We're not even built for that. So if you don't know how to make friends, it's easy, easier than what we make it sound. Start doing stuff. Like get a hobby, go to a hobbies group. There's meetups, right? Like join. And some of those people might be the best people you've ever met in your life because you already know you have a similar interest. So I would tell you to do that, and just stop competing and comparing. Live your life. That is like one thing. Don't compete against anybody but yourself. And that's not a cliche. That is not just drop the jealousy, drop the comparison, and just live. Do what makes your heart happy.
I mean, do you even have to compete against yourself, really?
I mean, I say that from a standpoint of like just get better, not necessarily compete with some crazy timeline that you developed for yourself, because we do that too. But like, okay, if I'm going to be a researcher, like I'm trying to be, it's on my time. So maybe last year I submitted 2 grants. This year I'm going to submit 3, right? Like I'm going to like do better and hone my craft, or maybe it's not even an increase in quantity, but a better quality, right? Like do what's good.
Or more efficient.
Like do what makes your heart happy. Like do those things for you. Not because somebody else told you that you have to. Yeah.
Well, I do want to end this episode by saying thank you for being a guest and opening up your home basically for me to come, and then also for the listeners to get this great information. And I'm pretty sure I got something out of it, and I know they should get some out of it as well. But before we leave, I do want to give you a chance to also plug anything or shout out anything that you might be working on or you want people to contact you with.
Lots of things always going, right? So I would tell everyone to keep up with me. You can go to my website, whitneygaskins.com. But also I run a foundation with my husband. It's the gaskinsfoundation.org. We have Stimulates, which is K through 12 hands-on STEM programming. We love to partner. So if it's something interesting to you, we would love to partner wherever you are. We also do the STEMmies, so think Emmys, but for STEM, and we give out awards to wonderful talent in the Black community. That's happening October 1st. And so if you're listening to this, you can attend the STEMmies, or and it's every year the first Saturday of the month. So I'm so sorry. Anyway, we have the STEMmies, and it is the first Saturday of the month, in October. So excited about that. But we always have something moving and shaking. So just keep up with me.
Well, with that, I would like to say again, thank you for being a great guest for this episode, and thank you for giving this great information and this knowledge for hopefully to help someone. And to my listeners, thank you for listening in and participating by listening. But hopefully this helped you in some way that can help you with your future. But until next time, as always, continue your journey until you reach your success. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Lazenby Experience podcast. I really hope you were able to receive valuable information that will help you take actionable steps to get you closer to achieving your goals. If this is true for you, I would really appreciate it if you shared this episode with others, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to continue receiving updates on new episodes. I truly am excited about how my experience, the Lazenby Experience, can make a difference in your life. Again, thank you for listening to the Lazenby Experience podcast, and until next time, continue your journey until you reach your success.